In war, there's a fine line between the living and the dead. In Italy, during the Second World War, many young men walked this line, facing their greatest fears, and even worse, the enemy.
And I actually killed a German on Christmas Day. And that was sadness. It still bothers me, but...
They fight in horrendous conditions. Many battles in Italy are throwbacks to World War I.
If we won the battle, it was a battle of attrition. Who killed the most?
Thousands die in the longest campaign fought by the Western Allies. An incredible 658 days of hardcore warfare. Emotional scars are deep.
I would look down in the woods and see arms and legs and clothes hanging in the trees. It was terrible.
But history has not been kind to the mud, misery, and death of the Italian campaign. It often takes a back seat to the glorious battles of Normandy and the final drive through Nazi-held Germany. Yet, these men who fought in Italy, who have been unceremoniously nicknamed D-Day Dodgers, they return to Italian soil year after year to honor their dead comrades and pay tribute to the country they helped liberate so many years ago. This is their story, and the story of the merciless and often forgotten campaign through bloody Italy. It is the warm waters of the Mediterranean Sea, and not the cold English Channel, where the first Allied amphibious landings take place in Europe during the Second World War. 11 months prior to the D-Day landings in France, Operation Husky begins the invasion of Europe. 3,000 ships converge off the southeast coast of Sicily in one of the largest military operations in the history of warfare. Maurice White remembers well that historic day.
This is where we landed, about 500 yards down the beach. Our company come in with the LSIs, and the waves, I'm pretty sure they were much bigger than this.
Maurice White is only 18 years old on the morning of July 10th, 1943. He lands in the second wave with the Loyal Edmonton Regiment.
Well, I can still see us coming off the boat. Everything just goes back like you put your brain in reverse. But just getting daylight, I have no idea what time it was. Time didn't really mean much.
Over 160,000 men from Canada, Britain, and the United States land along the south coast of Sicily during Operation Husky. Maurice White finds himself standing on the same beach for the first time since that morning.
Yeah, the grass, the vegetation was very much the same as it is now. As a matter of fact, they took all these buildings out. I would think it was back on D-Day, or our D-Day.
Though fighting separately, the Canadian forces are part of the British 8th Army under General Bernard Montgomery's command. Canadian soldiers land in 3 waves on beaches codenamed Roger and Sugar. The Canadians' objective is to land quickly and then move north towards the town of Aspica and east to the airfields at Pecino. Bill Skull Wharton is 23 years old when he lands in the second wave with the Seaforth Highlanders. For an operation so massive, its secrecy is its greatest success. Wharton, like many of the 26,000 Canadian soldiers from 1st Division, is told of their objective only days before the landings.
We didn't have any personal information until our colonel called us all together and said, we're going to Sicily, and we're going to be landing on the beach, she says, and unfortunately, the information we received from the frogmen, it's heavily fortified, and we can expect heavy casualties. And that's what he told us straight.
The information given to Wharton and his men is from Allied reconnaissance missions done earlier along the Sicilian coast. Aerial photographs show what appears to be large fortifications on the beach. The men expect a bloodbath. What happens that morning on the beaches of Sicily remains a surprise to many of the soldiers who land in the first waves of attack. The men face little or no opposition from enemy forces. There is only a scattering of Italian resistance. No Germans are in the area. Operation Husky is a tactical surprise. The cement pillboxes seen in recon photos don't exist.
We got ashore, and these heavy fortifications were donkey pens and mule pens. If they were man by man, we'd have never made it, but you know, that any of the ones that got in that area wouldn't have a chance.
I was surprised that there were very little opposition on the beach. Because when you have 3,000 ships coming in the bay, they must have known we were coming, so yeah, you expect the worst.
The invasion of Europe begins with relative ease. Most men never have to fire their weapons. But it will not be long before Canadian blood is shed on Sicilian soil. The Canadians' route through Sicily is by far the most difficult of any of the Allied forces. The interior in which the Canadians must go is a rugged world of rock and sand, severe cliffs, and deep valleys. They pass through a world so unfamiliar to these young men from Canada. The names of the towns are out of a Fellini movie: Modica, Ragusa, Piazza Armerina, a far cry from Gravenhurst, Abbotsford, and Charlottetown.
Each town that we approached was just a little bit harder and a little bit longer than the one that we had just come through, because you know that the Germans are backing themselves up against a wall, and they had to stand as long as they could so they could evacuate their people over to mainland Italy. I guess that was the reason it became harder and harder all the time.
The ease of the landings now seem far off as the Canadians move deeper into the Sicilian interior. They face well-trained German forces in Asoro, Leonforte, and then Agira, a medieval town built on a mountaintop.
To get to Agira, I remember that we walked all night until we got to this ridge just at daylight on the north side of Agira. I'm sure it was on this part of the ridge. And it brings everything back. I mean, you're looking down the ridge with 18-year-old eyes, not 80-year-old eyes. When we got to this point, I'm pretty sure it's this point, Germans were running out of town and running down this valley, and there was a house where that red brick house is, and they would run to that and then run on to another place where they'd take cover, and we were taking pot shots at them from here. Kind of like shooting ducks in the water, but that's what you had to do. Well, again, it's pretty hard to explain because you're shooting a human being, even though he was a German soldier, you know, and I found it hard to do that, but you got to do it or he's going to shoot you. So it wasn't a very pleasant thing, to say the least. But that's your duty when you're a soldier, and you have to bear with it, you know.
Canadians suffer 438 casualties at Agira, the most during the Sicilian campaign. The relentless battles continue through the hills and mountains of Sicily. Casualties mount. Sicily proves not to be the cakewalk that some expect after the landings. the Canadians advance 240 kilometers and suffer 2,300 casualties. More than 500 Canadian troops are killed. They are buried in one cemetery outside of Ajira.
"42 Loyal regiments that are lying in the grave in Ajira. These are soldiers that gave their life throughout the whole Sicilian campaign, and some of them I didn't know, and some of them I knew very well. As a matter of fact, one young gentleman, Aboriginal boy, same age as I was, we were very good friends, and that kind of hit home, and it still does.
It takes the Allies 38 days of hard, bloody fighting to capture the island. The Sicilian campaign is a military success on one hand, a military debacle on the other. The Allies' inability to stop the German evacuation at the port of Messina is the biggest failure of the campaign. The Germans are able to safely evacuate 55,000 soldiers, 10,000 vehicles, many tanks, guns, and tons of ammunition. It will not be long before the Allies will have to face these same German men and machines again as the battle continues on mainland Italy. Maurice White's journey continues here on the Strait of Messina, a short 20-minute ferry ride to mainland Italy. It's across this channel the Germans escaped during the Sicilian campaign. And it's here where Maurice and the rest of Canada's 1st Division cross on September 3rd, 1943.
Well, you were preparing hours and hours before we even got onto the boats to go across. And again, we didn't know what was going to happen. It was black, dark when we got into Reggio Calabria, and we just put on our gear and started walking.
The Canadians land with no opposition on the beaches of Reggio de Calabria, and then begin a long, grueling trek up the Italian east coast. They face scattered opposition as the Germans conduct a very skillful fighting withdrawal ahead of the advancing Allies. On September 8th, Italy officially surrenders to the Allied forces. It's one less enemy to worry about.
At one point, we went through Italian parachute regiment. They just watched us go through, and we watched them sit there. And that was kind of a nice thought to think that they weren't going to be shooting us in the back when we passed through.
Maurice White and the Canadian 1st Division continue to head north through rugged Italian countryside. First, liberating the town of Potenza on September 20th, and then 3 weeks later, Campobasso. Campobasso becomes Canada Town as soldiers flock here while on leave. For a few brief moments, they forget the war. But the war rages on. December will place Maurice White and many Canadian soldiers in the middle of some of the worst and bloodiest fighting of the Second World War. They are about to enter Ortona. It is a battle that has become legendary in Canadian history, and a town that connects us with Italy more than any other. In December of 1943, when Canadian forces march north towards the seaside town of Ortona, no one can anticipate what will unfold over the next 4 weeks. The road to Ortona begins here in the Moreau River Valley. On December 4th, 1943, Canadians get the order to cross the Moreau River. But hell begins before the Canadians move out.
They shelled us mercifully for a couple of hours, and then at times it sounded like as many shells coming down as raindrops. And when the barrage quit and it got daylight, every inch of that soil, it looked like it had been plowed. Every branch in the tree was broken. But I wonder why any of us really lived.
Today, the Moreau River is a narrow stream cutting through a beautiful valley full of vineyards. In December of 1943, this valley is soaked with Canadian blood. The anticipated one-day march into Ortona lasts 3 long weeks. The Canadians advance slowly up the Moreau River Valley to the town of San Leonardo, and then move towards a deep ravine they call the Gully. It is here on the night of December 14th, the Royal 22nd Regiment, otherwise known as the Vendeus, are encircled by German forces. With mounting casualties, Captain Paul Triquet commands his small band of Vendeus not to retreat, but to advance further into the German lines, take and hold Casa Berardi, a 17th century cottage on the edge of the gully. Triquet and 15 Vendeus fight gallantly, withstanding continuous shell fire and counterattacks until reinforcements arrive the next day and Casa Berardi is secure. Paul Triquet is awarded the Victoria Cross, the highest honor that can be bestowed upon a Canadian soldier. The simple building still stands overlooking the gully. Bullet and shell holes still mark the exterior. Casa Berardi is sacred ground for the men who fight in Ortona, a symbol of Canada's brave and courageous acts of heroism during the Italian campaign. While Triquet becomes a Canadian hero and heads back to Canada, Maurice White's war is about to get worse. The Loyal Edmonton Regiment and Seaforth Highlanders of Canada are ordered to take the town center. On December 21st, 3 weeks after crossing the Moreau, they reach Ortona.
Yeah, A Company, this was our route through here. And I think Dawn Company was Dawn Company was on the right there.
This is the Corso Victorio Emanuele, now a popular pedestrian shopping and dining area. But during the battle for Ortona, it is a road of destruction and death. It is here where Maurice White and his loyal Edmontons are ordered to go. They come face to face with a well-trained German paratroop division.
This was the street that our company went down, and we had to fight our way all the way through, like going around houses or through houses, all the way down, because the whole street was literally full of rubble. There was no such thing as a street. It was bombed and shelled very, very heavily before we went in. And the Germans also had blown down houses to create a pile of rubble which they could set their machine guns up on and be looking down on us. When you got past the first rubble pile, there was still another one, and another one, and another one. You had no way of just going down the street. It was just suicide to even think about it.
Ortona becomes a street fight and is given the nickname Little Stalingrad. To make matters worse, the battle rages on through Christmas.
On Christmas Day, they brought us up hot beef and potatoes and gravy, And my position was up in the eaves of a house that I'd knocked some bricks out. And I'd come down and got my ration, went back up and sat on my post up there. And I actually killed a German on Christmas Day. And that was sadness. It still bothers me, but you know, it's hell to have to kill somebody on Christmas. You can see the poor guy drop. You know, he had a mother too. But I guess that's war.
The Canadians enter Ortona on December 21st. 7 days later, the town falls silent. The Germans leave. Ortona is finally clear. At the Morrow River Cemetery, over 1,300 Canadians are buried. Most of these men died during those horrific weeks fighting for the town of Ortona. As in a Jura, Maurice White counts the graves of the loyal Edmontons. And once again, he finds a grave of a long-lost friend, and memories flood back.
It's Gordon Tuff from Tofield, Alberta. He was killed on the second day in Ortona, I think in the first square. Another good soldier. Sorry, I just can't help it.
In war, the fine line between the living and the dead never ends. Remnants of war can be easily fixed, but emotional scars run deep, sometimes too deep to mend. Sadly, the Battle of Ortona has little strategic impact in the overall Italian campaign, but it does remain a great symbol of the brave and courageous actions by Canadian soldiers who gave the ultimate sacrifice during the war. These are the beaches south of Salerno. It is here the American Fifth Army lands on September 9, 1943, and faces tough German opposition. After a week of intense fighting, the Americans finally control the beachhead and begin their trek north, slowly advancing through rugged and mountainous terrain. In January 1944, they come to Monte Cassino, a 1,700-foot mountain rising above the Liri Valley. It is the cornerstone of the Gustav and Hitler lines, the two main German defense lines south of Rome. On top of Monte Cassino stands the abbey founded by Saint Benedict in the 6th century. On January 30th, the Allies attack a strong German line in the first of 4 assaults on the mountain over the coming months. The attack proves to be futile. The Germans are dug too deep into the mountain. On February 15th, one of the most controversial acts of the war takes place. Assuming that the Germans are using the abbey as a defensive position, Allied bombers completely destroy the 6th century Christian shrine in an all-out air assault. In just a few hours, the abbey is reduced to rubble. Sadly, It is later discovered that the Germans are not in the sacred ruins, but ironically used the mountain rubble created by the bombing to build an almost impregnable defensive position. It is into this world that 19-year-old George Upshaw enters near the end of February 1944. He is part of the Newfoundland 166 Artillery Regiment, a roving unit usually sent to the toughest battles as artillery support. He and his fellow Newfoundlanders will take part in the third assault on Monte Cassino.
We started firing at 2:30 in the morning with 6,500 guns opened up on Cassino. You couldn't walk on the ground. The ground was just moving. And we fired until 5 o'clock in the morning. And then the B-52s came in. The sky was black with planes. But the B-52s dropped their bombs on Cassino, and they leveled it. When the planes were finished, the infantry went in, and we supported the infantry with our 25-pounders. But it was like going into a brick wall. The Germans were into the hill, dug in, and when the boys went in, they were slaughtered more or less.
The third assault on Cassino ends in failure. Though the town is leveled by Allied bombers and the destruction is beyond belief, the German paratroopers survived the attack in well-constructed bunkers and pushed back the Allied infantry. For George Upshaw, it is during the third assault on Cassino when he experiences the true horror of war, and images that still, unfortunately, remain with him.
I don't know if I should mention this or not. There's a lot of things happened that I don't think they've ever made public, but I'm talking about planes bombing our own troops. When bombs were put into the plane, they were put in racks. There's racks. The bombs were locked in. Apparently, they weren't locked right, because as the plane went down the runway, the bombs fell out of the racks down in the bottom of the plane. When they opened the bomb doors, they were right over us. We were so close into the Cassino. They opened the bomb doors, the bombs just fell out. And it was hell. There was an American gun on our left. There was 13 men on her. And the bomb came right down, and one of the bombs came out of the plane right into the gun pit. That was something to see. I should look down in the woods and see arms and legs and clothes hanging in the trees. It was terrible.
The battle for Monte Cassino will last 2 more months. Finally, a determined Polish division takes the mountain from the fierce German paratroopers on May 17th. The battle for Cassino proves to be one of the bloodiest during not only the Italian campaign, but also the entire Second World War. Today, below the rebuilt abbey, lays the war cemetery at Cassino. Over 4,000 Allied soldiers from the Commonwealth forces share this cemetery. 194 graves are Canadian. But they are not casualties from the battle at Cassino. Most of the graves are from one of the bloodiest days for Canadian soldiers during the Second World War. The date is May 23rd, the day the Allies attempt to break through the Hitler line. At 0500, on the morning of May 23rd, the guns open up. The objective is to breach the Hitler line along the Pontecorvo-Aquino Road, with the Princess Patricias, Seaforth Highlanders, and Loyal Edmontons leading the assault. Today, this road cuts through miles of fertile farmland. On May 23, 1944, it is a battleground from hell. Bill Wharton of the Seaforth Highlanders remembers all too well that day along the Hitler line.
We knew that it was going to be a big one. We were one of the lead units. There's all hell on earth coming down, I'm telling you. That was the worst one I've ever been in. Even though the whole war, that became the worst one.
For the leading units, the killing ground is near this valley called Forme do Aquino. German paratroopers who escape Cassino are hidden on the north bank. They fire upon the advancing Canadians.
There were all trees around there, and they were shelling us like heck. If we won the battle, it was a battle of attrition. Who killed the most?
The three advancing units take heavy casualties. Bill Wharton and the Seaforth Highlanders have to pull back. They lose all their officers in rapid succession.
We were pulled out at that particular point in time because we lost our equipment, we lost everything.
The Hitler line is finally broken by the Carleton and York Regiment, who find a weakness in the line just west of the Forme do Aquino. The Battle of Wills is won by the brave Canadians. They quickly move on and cross the Melfa River and take the town of Pontecorvo. When the battle ends, one last gruesome task has to be done by the men who lived through the horror.
The fellows that had done the fighting would pull out to dig graves and show the effect of it sometimes. Right down below where I was digging the grave, this Edmonton Regiment, they had one guy there, and he was standing by the grave, and they dropped his brother there, and he went right out of his mind. They couldn't stop him from screaming. And they gave him sedatives and everything. It didn't seem to affect him.
Sometimes in war, it's not the dead who suffer the most. On May 23rd, when the Canadians are breaking through the Hitler line, further north, the American Fifth Army is simultaneously breaking out at the Anzio beachhead. This brutal battle has been raging on for 4 long months. It begins on January 22nd, when an amphibious force lands here on the beaches near Anzio. The bloody standoff between German forces and Allied troops is reminiscent of trench warfare during the First World War. Within the American Fifth Army at Anzio is a group of Canadians fighting with the 1st Special Service Force, a commando unit made up of Canadian and American paratroopers. They are one of the deadliest and most feared units of the Second World War. After successfully taking mountaintop after mountaintop south of Cassino, they are assigned to the Anzio beachhead in February of 1944. For 99 remarkable days, they hold the line.
So they brought us in and they assigned the 1st Special Service Force an awful length of front line. But I think we had close to 25 or 30% of that front line. We lived in foxholes. A foxhole is a hole in the ground just like a fox lives in. But these foxholes were anywhere from 40 to 50 feet apart. We're spread very, very thin.
It is along the Mussolini Canal that the 1st Special Service Force live and fight for 3 months. To give the Germans the impression that there are many more men along the line than there actually are, the forcemen perform dangerous night patrols in German territory. With blackened faces, night after night they enter the German line and wreak havoc. They proudly gain a nickname in Anzio.
We developed a bit of a reputation. That's where the name Black Devils is supposed to have come from. In this German officer's diary, which had been captured by our intelligence people, it said in there, those Black Devils, we don't know where they are. They're all about us, unquote. So we were successful in establishing a rather strong line with very few people.
On May 23rd, the 1st Special Service Force and the American Fifth Army successfully break out of the Anzio beachhead. After months of fighting along the Mussolini Canal, they advance towards their final goal, Rome. 60 years later, Charles Mann comes back to the beachhead to search for his former home at Anzio, his foxhole that he lived in for 99 days.
We're going over here towards the canal, the old Mussolini Canal. Right now we're looking for the front line of the Anzio beachhead, which 4th Company, 3rd Regiment maintained for 99 days. For me, personally, I'm looking for my company headquarters area where I had my own foxhole. It was located very close to a rise in the land of the canal, and that's what we're going to check out now and see if there's a hump in the canal. God damn it, it looks like it. I didn't expect to find the hole. I mean, 60 years later, the hole's going to be gone, but that's beside the point. I get my breath. The terrain has changed a bit. As a matter of fact, it's changed quite a bit. Now, if I'm right, we were all dug in along the edge of this bank, and our enemy was out there. The canal itself is not much of a canal anymore, but I was able to stand on that bank, look out over where I went on patrol that night, and I was 90% sure that I was standing on the bank that I lived in for 80 or 90 days. It means that all the muck and dirt that we went through for 90-some odd days in this area has proven to be well worth the effort.
2 weeks after breaking out of Anzio, the 1st Special Service Force are given the honor of being the first to enter the Eternal City. Rome is finally liberated. Though the Americans are given the credit as the liberators of Rome, American General Mark Clark has been criticized for advancing towards Rome too quickly, instead of cutting off the Germans heading north of the Hitler line. It is believed his desire for glory outweighs ending the Italian campaign sooner. Ironically, 2 days later, the liberation of Rome is overshadowed by the most spectacular event of the Second World War, D-Day, the landings in Normandy, France. Mark Clark never achieves the glory he's hoping for. But for the men of the 1st Special Service Force, it is remembrance, not glory, that they now search for. They have come back to Italy to celebrate the 60th anniversary of the liberation of Rome. Within the Eternal City, they will never be overshadowed or forgotten. Their legacy is etched in stone. The Italian campaign rages on well after the liberation of Rome. On August 31st, 1944, on the 416th day of the Italian campaign, the Canadians line up at the Gothic Line in an attempt to break the last of Hitler's defensive positions in Italy. This 320-kilometer German line of defense runs the width of Italy from the Mediterranean to the Adriatic Sea. Bruce Dalgarno is 22 years old at the time. He is part of the British Columbia Dragoons, or BCDs as they are called. His tank squadron is commanded by Colonel Frederick Vaux, younger brother of Canadian General Christopher Vaux.
At about 10:30 or something like that, the colonel got the order to advance without support because our infantry wasn't coming. And that's when the regiment went it alone. It was a mad dash for 204. 2 squadrons up front and 1 in reserve.
Point 204 is a small hill with a commanding view of the countryside, a strategic position within the Gothic Line desperately needed by the Allies. The BCDs managed to secure the point easily by early afternoon, but this doesn't satisfy Colonel Vaux. He decides to take his squadron of 4 tanks past the leading squadron and deeper into German territory.
The colonel decided that he had to get up there to see what was going on, and in this attempt to find out what was going on, somehow we got off to the left of them and went around them and actually went out ahead of them. Regimental headquarters, in the confusion of battle, came up through this valley here and come up right through at my feet here almost and up over that road in this very general area right here. And this is where our tank was taken out.
Colonel Vaux's gamble does not pay off. 3 of the 4 BCD tanks are disabled. The men are now alone, deep in German territory.
And I was in a strange world there then, because I had no idea where I was. And I didn't see anybody. Everybody had already taken cover, whatever they did, you know. I was there all by myself. And I got a distance away, 50 yards maybe from the tank, just to be away from it. And I lay down on the ground and I tried to hide right on the bare ground, flat ground, maybe a little bit of an indent in the ground. And they very near bypassed me, very near. And then they spotted me, and that was when I was captured. A strange feeling came over me, and I lost all fear. My destiny had been taken away from me. I had no control over where I was going or what was going to happen to me. I had no fear of anything.
Bruce Dalgarno is one of 2 British Columbia Dragoons captured by the Germans. Many of the tank squadron, including Colonel Vaux, escaped to Canadian lines, leaving Bruce behind.
The only question I have in this area, why did he leave the tank? Why did he leave it, you know?
Irony in war is constant. A few hours after leaving his men at the hands of the Germans, an enemy shell lands near Colonel Vaux. He dies that same day. Bruce Dalgarno will spend 10 brutal months as a prisoner of war, but he lives to tell the story of the day the British Columbia Dragoons are the first to breach the Gothic Line.
Moncecchio and Gradera are where most of my buddies are. I have a list of the names of all of these fellows, and I've been there to visit them before. Well, it just brings back the past, you know.
The past is hard for any of these veterans to forget. The war is deeply embedded within their souls. The fine line between the living and the dead becomes very transparent when returning to the fields of battle and to sacred ground where friends are buried. For men like Maurice White, Bill Wharton, George Upshaw, Charles Mann, and Bruce Delgarno, they represent the stories of the tens of thousands of men who share similar experiences fighting in the long and bloody campaign through Italy. Though most Canadian soldiers fighting in Italy are sent to Holland in February of 1945, the Italian campaign continues and only ends with the fall of Berlin early in May. In total, 5,399 Canadians are killed. Another 19,486 are wounded. That is simply too many reasons never to forget the campaign through bloody Italy.